Yay, Feetball, boys and girls. Howdy, welcome back to the Carla and Crappy show. Carla, that's absolutely priceless. And the timing cannot be better.
Yeah, and you know what's really funny is the fact that like we didn't even have to coach her on that. Like she just started saying Feetball, which is just the funniest thing ever. So so yay, Feetball indeed. We got a doozy on our hands. Here we go.
We have this week is the yayest of Feetballs so far all season. And we will get to that in depth, boys and girls, as I'm sure you are already aware. As we do, we're going to take a quick look back before we take a look ahead to this weekend. As you guys know, I was in Ithaca to see Drew Powell, my nephew, play in person. The first time I had not seen him play in high school or in college. My wife and I were there. My parents, his grandparents were there. His folks were there. So we had a tremendous weekend. Although it means I did not see a whole lot of other football, with one glaring exception. I kind of feel like we should start, however, with something that has been a longtime feature of the show. Carla, remind us, please, what is the Stanford Postulate?
Yes, my best thing that happened last weekend is that in the last year, the final year of our beloved Pac-12 2023, the Stanford Postulate lives on Friday the 13th.
On Friday the 13th,
which makes
yes.
this even better. Yeah. So the Stanford Postulate, if you're new to the show, you don't know this because we came up with this like what 6 or 7 years ago.
This is a long time ago.
We've been running this for a while. So this is the theory that Stanford will lose a game it's supposed to win, mm-hmm. and win a game it's supposed to lose. Mm-hmm. And this past weekend might have been the most Stanford postulate-y. Is that a word?
It is now.
We make up words. Postulate-y. Okay, yeah. Sure. This might have been the most epic Stanford postulate example that we have seen in the 12-year history of the Carla and Crappy show. Trailing 29-0 at the half at Colorado. So they are on the road in Boulder, trailing by 4 scores. Mm-hmm. Tree scored on 8 consecutive possessions in the second half to tie the game.
That's insane.
And then won the game in double overtime. Now, Colorado didn't help itself. They had lots of penalties, like a ridiculous amount of penalties. And then an ill-timed Shedeur Sanders toss-up in the end zone in double overtime that eventually sealed the game. But yes, Stanford now, I'm actually very appreciative as I'm distracted by, again, we were recording this on Tuesday, which means that my middle Blue Raiders are playing right now at Liberty and leading at the moment.
And
I bring that up because middle had the biggest loss mm-hmm. of the year, where they had the biggest lead and then lost the game.
Yeah.
That now goes that title this semester or this year now goes to Colorado. So I am very happy about that. Because the 29 was bigger than the 25, I think that middle had.
I think that's right.
Lead that they blew. So, and here's the other thing that makes us the most Stanford postulate of all of the postulates. Mm-hmm. Colorado needs 2 more wins for bowl eligibility. Mm-hmm. But when you look at their schedule, how about at a ranked UCLA, then home against a ranked Oregon State team, an unranked but really dangerous Arizona, and then finishing on the road at Wazoo and at ranked Utah?
Not a guarantee.
I don't see where Colorado gets 2 more wins. Mm-hmm. And so Stanford may be the reason why the Buffs don't go bowling. And I am so here for it because that's just what the Pac-12 does. Damn it. We're going to miss you, Pac-12.
I had forgotten about that game completely. And we were just kind of doing family stuff, hanging out on Friday night. Had a big pizza night and Drew came over. So we just got to catch up a little bit. And when I turned on game day in the morning, there are highlights. I'm like, oh, that's right. This game was last night, and Colorado's cruising, and what? So yeah, I was blown away by the result of that game, even though we did not see that live. I'll get to
I went to bed
the
at halftime.
Okay. Yeah, I
because
mean,
I thought the game was over.
as
I went to
any
bed at halftime. I
reasonable
was like,
human being would. I stayed up on Saturday night to halftime of the Notre Dame USC game. And that's kind of the game that I am able to talk about a little bit. I watched long enough to notice that the Trojans defense weren't the problem necessarily on Saturday. It was Caleb Williams throwing the ball to the guys in the shiny gold helmets. And Notre Dame's a good team. If you give them a short field over and over and over, I think there were 3 over and over and overs in the first half. They're going to score. And as is the case with Colorado, I feel like SC's done. I don't. They have they're still unbeaten in the conference, but they have Utah, Washington, Oregon, and UCLA all still to come. There's a loss in there. There at least one. There is no way they finish that stretch without a loss. I suppose they still could win the final Pac-12 championship. With you get there with one loss in the conference, but but as is the case with Colorado, that is not a guarantee, and there easily could be 2 losses in that stretch. I was not watching. Yes,
I would say I saw it, most of Oregon, Washington, and that game was as good as advertised. If I had to rank games this year, Red River is still number 1. This is probably a 1B. That game was just as good as we all thought it was going to be. And I texted the show thread. I said, I thought Penix made a mistake scoring so quickly to take the lead.
Yes.
And, there's still a minute 30 left in the game. And it was like, what are you doing? Why are you giving the ball back to Bo Nix with $1:30 left in the game? Plenty of time for that Oregon offense, but Nix just wasn't quite as sharp as usual. The offensive line struggled a bit, set up for that game tying field goal. And then college kickers, man, to have the game end in that way, it just, and the second year in a row, Washington ekes that game out. This was really fun. A fun stat from the Associated Press on that game. Yeah. Oregon had 541 total yards, 32 first downs, and held the ball for more than 34 minutes and lost.
Oof. That's crazy. That's crazy. College kicker situations, boys and girls. That's you gotta get one and hope as they do in Purdue that they did in Purdue, that he doesn't miss 3 field goals and screw up your whole day. The reason, of course, as I mentioned, that I did not see almost any football on Saturday is because we were watching football on Saturday. It was a chilly, rainy day in Ithaca, but the weather didn't bother us at all. It was the fact that Cornell lost to Bucknell 21-13. We went to see Drew play in person for the first time. We were not disappointed. 4 carries for 11 yards, including breaking a nice little 7-yard run in the second quarter. He's a little shiftier than you might expect. He added a 16-yard reception in the third quarter on a play that he told us afterwards was improvised, so that's kind of cool. And as I suspected, there are a lot of packages. He said he's the largest running back on the roster. So there are a lot of packages where he is in to block or serve as an outlet. So he is settled into that role very nicely. And was able to do that a bunch on Saturday as well. Cornell's defense could not solve Bucknell running back Coleman Bennett, who rushed for 157 yards on 29 carries. They just kept running these delay zone reads, and the guy looked like he was walking up to the line of scrimmage after getting the handoff. But man, when he saw a hole, he hit it and hit it quickly. So that was a difficult thing for them to manage. Next up for the Big Red Bears, they'll host Brown, a team they beat a year ago in Ithaca at 1 p.m. on Saturday. You'll be able to watch that, or in my case, sort of keep an eye on it on ESPN Plus. Carla, we don't have a ton of games. Just the one rather large gay feetball game.
Yes.
AJ, however, has a bunch of stuff that he wants you to watch. I'm guessing he's not going to. Would tell you not to watch Ohio State and Penn State because the AJ Fun Index is kind of embarrassing. But we'll get we'll get to that.
We'll get there.
AJ, please tell us what's coming up for the Group of Five After Dark this week.
Hello, everyone. It is this week's Group of Five After Dark report. I want to talk about some games happening all week because there's a number of really great ones. I hope everybody enjoyed the New Mexico State at UTEP game. By the time this episode is in your ears, you could go look at the score. That probably would be a fun game to watch. I'm going to start on Thursday. At 7 p.m. on ESPN, we have James Madison at Marshall. This is a Sun Belt classic. James Madison is really, really, really good. They beat the absolute life out of Georgia Southern last week at home, and all Georgia Southern wanted to do was just go home. It was very clear. By about the middle of the second quarter, they were ready to go home. JMU's favored by 3.5 here. Marshall is really, really good. I do think James Madison is just truly the class of the Sun Belt. It is a shame that the NCAA will not let them play for the Sun Belt Championship because of a stupid 2-year rule about coming up from FCS, and they can't go to a bowl game. James Madison is truly, truly good, and the NCAA should be ashamed of themselves. We're going to move to Saturday at noon. There's some games going on. I guess some people might be excited about that. But you know what is happening at noon? That's right. We have the start of the Commander-in-Chief's triumvirate games. We have Air Force at Navy. Air Force is favored by 10.5. The over-under on this game is 35. Now, I will say that Air Force has looked fantastic. They are 6-0. They are the best team in Colorado. Don't at me. And they have taken out in fairly short order their biggest competition in the Mountain West. They beat Wyoming. I believe they've already played Fresno. Actually, no, they haven't played Fresno yet. That should be a great game too. But Air Force is playing Navy. Navy is 3-3. They are more or less fine this year. But Air Force is really, really good. The problem is they just lost their starting quarterback for a while. Zach Larrier is out. Jensen Jones is the senior. He's coming in. He's also very good at running the triple option. I see Air Force rolling here. I don't see Army beating them either. So I think we can go ahead and wrap up the Commander-in-Chief's trophy for Air Force once again this year, but that's on at noon. Also at noon, we have some games of note in the Big Ten. That's right, Rutgers at Indiana. Rutgers is favored by 5 here. They are 5-2. So if, for whatever reason, you want to watch some Big Ten football at noon, you can watch Rutgers at Indiana. Rutgers is going for their 6th win of the season. Do not talk about what happens after they play Indiana and their chances to get to a 6th win, because it doesn't look great. But maybe Maryland at the very, very end of the year. Rutgers could be bowl eligible by 4 p.m. on Saturday. Just throwing that out there, that might be a thing. Indiana is bad. Rutgers, though, this is a thing to kind of keep an eye on. If you see Indiana is up at like halftime, maybe even leading in the third quarter, Rutgers, weirdly this year, has a thing where they turn it on in the fourth quarter. See, last week against Michigan State. See a couple of their other games this year. They just go on a run. They shut down the opposing team, and then they go on a run in the fourth quarter and have pulled out a number of wins this year. So keep an eye on that game. That should be silly. On the ACC network at noon, we have Boston College at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech favored by 4.5. Fun index of 58. What Georgia Tech team do we get? Do we get the team that magically pulled out a win against Miami? Or do we get lost by a lot to Bowling Green? Who's to say? Boston College, are we getting the team that lost to Northern Illinois? Or are we getting the team that insert name of team they've beaten here? honestly, this is a complete toss-up game. So if you're looking for a game you don't know anything about, neither do these teams. So watch that. I think we might have a second chance for a new Big 12 team to get a win over a legacy Big 12 team at noon on ESPN Plus. We have Baylor at Cincinnati. Cincinnati's favored by 3.5. Baylor is broken, y'all. They do not look right. Something is not right with that team. I don't know what it is. They can't really run. They can't really get anything going on offense. Their defense is getting stranded on the field. It is not a defense built to be stranded on the field. And Cincinnati might be able to take advantage of that. Maybe. Emory Jones having an okay year. But that is a game to keep an eye on. So there you go. There's that. There's the noon slate that you can watch for fun and entertainment. On 3:30 on ABC, we have Washington State at Oregon. Oregon is favored by 20. The Oregon at Washington game was a banger, as was predicted. Between that and Red River, which happened in back-to-back weeks, those are the two best games of the year, and I do not understand what's going to top them. But just absolute bangers in both games. Washington State, though, because it was on the Pac-12 network, I think they were in the 7 p.m. slot. No one was paying attention. And Washington State got their entire behinds kicked in by Arizona. They lost 30-6. They looked slow. They looked wonky because I am the one person who can watch the Pac-12 network. They did not look right. Arizona took it to them. Arizona is a team you don't want to mess with this year. They are they're like above the ankle. You know how we always refer to some teams as like they're ankle biter teams, and they'll just like they'll just nip at you and they might get you. No, they are like knee biters. They are hip biters. They're like the police dog that like runs up and like jumps on the person, and, like grabs the arm and tackles them, and there's no way for you to get away from that. It's like that. You might be able to get away like a little bit from Arizona. USC escaped. Oregon, though. Oregon's going to take out their frustration from last week on Washington State. I will not hear any slander about Dan Lanning's play calling and going forward on fourth down. It was the right thing to do. He was being aggressive because he knew he couldn't chase points against Washington, and he did not want to. He was going for points when he could go get them. I know that he wanted back the end of the first half fourth down where they were on the 2 and they could have kicked a field goal easily, but he went for a touchdown. The play calls and the decision to go for it are different things. And I think Dan Lanning should be applauded for wanting to go for it, and he and his staff should be questioned for the play calls that were made. But I think Oregon takes it out on Washington State, and the Cougs are kind of the whipping post here. At 3:30 on the SEC network, we have South Carolina at Missouri. You need to put some respect on your 6-1 Missouri Tigers. We all had a good joke when they beat Kansas State on the crazy long field goal. And now Missouri is favored by 7 at home over South Carolina. They're 6-1. Missouri is good. This is one of those weird years. Brady Cook, the quarterback for Missouri, is having a year. He's got 2,000 yards, 14 TDs, and 3 picks. Like, he is having himself a year. South Carolina should have probably beat Florida last week, and they didn't. Shane Beamer, you're going to see him limping on the sidelines because he got real mad after the game and he kicked something and he broke his foot. That's a real story. I'm not joking about that. So I don't know that South Carolina necessarily has the dudes to go against Missouri. What a statement to make. But I believe it to be true. Luther Burden is incredible, and you should watch him play football. Missouri is fun this year. The Missouri-Georgia game, actually, if I can think about that, I'm just going to vamp while I'm talking. They play Georgia in 2 weeks. They play Georgia on the 4th in Athens. That should be a banger of a game as well. That will more or less determine the SEC East. So watch that game. That's 3:30 on the SEC network. 3:30 on... I'm going to say these three, and I just want you to know that you don't have to watch these. You can if you choose to. Okay? On NBC, we have Minnesota at Iowa. On FS1, we have Wisconsin and Illinois. And on the Big Ten Network, we have Northwestern and Nebraska. The highest fun index for any of these three games is 42. Okay? I just want you to know that also at 3:30 is Oklahoma State at West Virginia on ESPN, and that will be a much sillier game. Okay? USF is playing UConn on CBS Sports Network, the Network of Champions, at 3:30. The over-under on that game is 54.5. On ESPN2, we have North Texas at Tulane, over-under 63. There are other things you can watch than Big Ten football, okay? That said, the fun index on the Minnesota-Iowa game is 31, and that's not low enough. The one offensive weapon that Iowa had was Eric All, their tight end. He's done for the season. Brian's not making it, y'all. Ain't no way. And if you really want to just disgust yourself, please look at Iowa's schedule. They are off next week and then proceed to play Northwestern, Rutgers, Illinois, and Nebraska to finish the season. The entire way. Nope. No. At 4 p.m., though, on Fox, we have Texas at Houston. You should put your eyeballs on this game. Houston is going to get up for this game. The fans, at least. I don't know about the team. Dana. But Houston fans will get up for this game. They've got a beef. They're going to be loud. They're going to be yelling at Texas. And I would love nothing more than for Dana to get an upset win over Texas for no reason at all. Just for giggles. Just for fun. Okay? Fun index on that game is 61. Put your eyeballs on that game. It's on Fox. We're not going to talk about the fact that Texas is favored by 23.5. Shh. Don't worry about that part. Okay? This is your chance if you would like to watch Hawaii football. Hawaii is playing New Mexico. That's going to be on the Mountain West Network, which is just go to the Mountain West website, themw.com, and you can watch the game live for free. Hawaii's playing New Mexico. Hawaii should have beat San Diego State last week. Questionable fumble review at the end of the game gave the ball back to San Diego State. They were able to milk the clock and kill it. Hawaii's favored by 1. This is your chance to watch Hawaii without having to stay up till 3 in the morning. Yes, I did pass the Hawaii test last week. And that game actually ended up being really great. San Diego State and Hawaii scored 79 points at 3 in the morning. It was great. Let's go down to 7 p.m. I believe this one's also on the Mountain West Network. We have Colorado State at UNLV. I'm only picking this game because UNLV is good. They are 5-1. Don't let anybody fool you. They are 5-1. One of those 5 wins is against an SEC team. It was Vandy, but it's an SEC team. Okay? Colorado State goes to Las Vegas and has to play UNLV after coming off of a last-second Hail Mary touchdown to beat Boise last week. This is a letdown game for Colorado State, y'all. UNLV should win by a good bit here, but this game should be silly fun. The fun index is 64. Put your eyeballs on this game. 7:30 ABC. I'm going to talk about this game because I can. Duke at Florida State. Duke is good. Florida State's better. Duke is very good. This is Duke in primetime again. This is the 3rd Duke primetime game this year. I just want to say that out loud. That's what this is. Duke and Florida State. This should be a great game. You should watch this game. I do think Florida State's going to win. Jordan Travis is a magician. And Keon Coleman will catch literally anything thrown into his zip code. Okay? So, yeah, watch Duke and Florida State. Maybe Duke can slow down Florida State enough and maybe keep this one close, but I still see Florida State rolling here. 8 p.m. on Fox. We have Utah at USC. USC got exposed, y'all. Somebody finally made their offense make a bunch of turnovers. 7 to be exact. And Notre Dame made them pay. This is not on the terrible USC defense. I want to make that very clear. The USC defense actually played relatively well given the 48 points on the board for Notre Dame. 2 of those were return scores, I want to point out. So really it was 34-20. The defense held Notre Dame to 34. And a lot of that was given that USC was effectively handing Notre Dame the ball on like the 25. Notre Dame didn't have to go that far to actually go score. So I think USC bounces back. Utah still has a mean-ass defense, and I think will likely make USC's life not very fun, and it's going to put to bed the story of USC just rolling to a title by scoring 1,000,000 points. USC is going to get their points off. They're going to play really great offense, but I think Utah either keeps this close or wins it outright. We got a good late slate this week. A couple games to point out here. On FS1 at 10:30, Arizona State at Washington. Watch Michael Penix do Michael Penix stuff. They're favored by 26.5. It doesn't matter. Just go watch Michael Penix do Michael Penix things. And then 10:30 on ESPN, we have UCLA at Stanford. UCLA is favored by 17. I'm interested to see what quarterback we get. Dante Moore is really, really good, but he is still a freshman. And he was shown to be a freshman last week when Oregon State made him look very, very silly. I expect Dante Moore to pick this up. I expect this to be a bounce-back game. Stanford is more or less okay on defense. And then I'd love to see what Alec Eomanor is able to turn around and make after his coming out party against Colorado. I think he's really, really good. I think he is capable of making incredible catches. It's a question of can he do that against a very, very good UCLA defense. One small note, if we pop down to FBS, or not FBS, FCS. On ESPN2 at 10:30 p.m., we have Montana State, who's number 2, against number 4 Sacramento State. We have a number 2 versus number 4 FCS game at 10:30 on ESPN2 in our beloved Big Sky Conference. Big Sky, big football. Watch that game. The late slate is fantastic. Caffeinate and stay up late with me. That's been this week's Group of 5 After Dark Report. We will see you out there. Back to you, Carla and Crappy.
Thank you, AJ. It sounds like a great slate as always. Our games start at noon. Our rundown is going to start at 3:30 when we once again loan our music to back to the SEC. On CBS, number 17, Tennessee at number 11, Alabama. Bama is favored at home by 9.5 points. The AJ Fun Index is a not-so-fun 49. Carla, what do you think?
So, yeah, I looked at this one a little bit, and I just kind of made my decision pretty early, and I'm going to state my case as to why I'm picking the way that I'm picking. But,
Okay.
you know, here is why I am, pardon the pun, rolling with the tide on this game. Yeah, the Vols beat A&M last week, 20-13, but they won with just one offensive touchdown. And that came real early in the game in the first quarter. And the other scores were 2 field goals and a punt return touchdown that gave the Vols the lead early in the second half. And that was kind of the momentum that they needed to kind of hold on to win that game. Joe Milton had just 100 yards passing. That's kind of shocking, to be honest. And that's not an offensive performance that gives me much confidence as this team, which has played really poorly on the road, see that, previous game in the Swamp, heads to Tuscaloosa. The Vols need a solid ground game to thrive on offense, and Bama hasn't fully looked like Bama this year. Their run defense is still real good. So I see Bama winning this game at home. If this was in Neyland, I might think a little differently about it because the Vols play good at home. But it's in the loose. This is going to be a Bama win. I think it'll be a close game because Bama isn't fully Bama this year.
Mortable.
But
they are mortable.
Yeah, they are mortable. They're very mortable. But I don't think that the Vols are going to be the one to prove that mortability. Bama wins at home.
Okay. Alabama has found a formula that's been working for them. Play defense, run the ball, turn loose Jalen Milroe once in a while so he can throw a deep ball. As I said, Bama is mortable, and Tennessee is capable of winning this game. I just don't think they will. I think Alabama is going to win this one at home and pretty easily. At 7:30 p.m. on ABC, number 16 Duke at number 4 Florida State. The Seminoles are favored by 14. That seems like a stretch. The AJ Fun Index for this game also 49 points. What do you think?
Yeah, if this game was in Durham, I'd be really tempted to take Duke here. Because Duke's defense is for real. They are second in total defense in the ACC behind Clemson, and we saw how much trouble Clemson gave the Noles earlier this year. Duke thrives on its ground game, much like Tennessee.
Mhm.
And I think the Devils may be able to get a bit of a ground game going against a Florida State rush defense that ranks in the bottom half of the conference. So I think Duke can get something going offensively here, but the problem is the Noles have rebounded and done what they needed to do. I'm sorry, Middle is sprinting for a touchdown here. If this play stands,
I was trying not to yell.
yeah,
there you go.
That's a touchdown. That's a touchdown, Middle. After Liberty just tied it up.
That's like a 70-yard swing pass. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and did he stay in? He stayed in.
I think so.
He is totally in. That's a touchdown. That's a touchdown. Yes. Okay, back to the game at hand. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. So the Noles have rebounded and done what they've needed to do after surviving that scare at Clemson, and they're playing this game at home. I think that line is silly. I think this game is much closer than a 2-touchdown win, but I do think Jordan Travis and that Noles offense find a way to get this done at home. But this game should be, I mean, the game we care about is at noon. Watch this game in the evening, or at least keep it on the scoreboard watch, because I think this game, even though the fun index is low on this one, I think this game's going to be really fun. So keep an eye on this one, but Noles win at home.
You mentioned a couple of Duke's defensive statistics. The one that stands out to me, a couple that stand out to me. They give up fewer than 300 yards a game. They give up fewer than 10 points per game. That stat puts them in some pretty good country. They're fourth in the nation in scoring defense behind, get this, Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State. That's pretty lofty company. That's going to be more than just a speed bump for Florida State to contend with. If the Seminoles are able to score a bit, it's going to be tough for the Blue Devils' balanced offense to keep up. This is going to be a tight game. The 14-point line is dumb, but the Seminoles will win this game at home. I might call that, as you said, I might call that differently if that was in Durham, but that is a matchup for another season. At 8 p.m. on Fox, number 14 Utah visits number 18 USC. SC is favored by 6.5. The AJ Fun Index is 56 points. Carla, what do you think?
I so want to pick Utah in this game. You have no idea how much I want to take Utah in this game, but
yeah, I do. I do actually.
as we just talked about. So yeah, about that USC defense. Now I realize that really wasn't necessarily a thing last week, but it was more about the play of the Irish defense, right? Being able to force Caleb Williams into dumb mistakes. Yeah. And I think the Utah defense is actually capable of doing the same thing to Caleb Williams again this week. That Utah defense is right up there with the Irish defense, right? So yeah, as much as I'd like to, but the problem is that as much as I would like to say that the Utah defense is going to be able to do the same thing, there's one challenge. Sam Hartman and that Irish offense could go toe to toe with that USC offense.
Yes.
Without Cam Rising, the Utes offense just is not the same this year. It's just not. And I really think that's going to be a factor. I think Utah is going to be able to slow the Trojans down, but I'm not sure it's going to be enough in the Coliseum to be able to secure a win here. I think the Pac-12 is going to continue to do Pac-12 things, and USC ends up winning a very close game at home.
Okay. I am fully aware that I just completely wrote off USC earlier in the show, and I absolutely stand by that. I don't think the swoon begins this week. At home in comfortable surroundings, I think Caleb Williams settles down, plays within himself, rather than trying the swashbuckling stuff that got him in trouble in South Bend. And I think Utah won't be able to keep up with a USC. So give this win to the Trojans.
It does make you wonder what this season would have been for the Utes, though, if Cam had been playing.
Yeah.
They're putting together a hell of a season, and if you had that offense to back it up, you might be talking a playoff contender, Utah Utes.
You would be adding another team to the top of this pile in the Pac-12 with Washington and Oregon, and you got just one more to add into the mix if that were the case.
Yep, it's a bummer.
Big Newt on Fox.
We're not friends anymore. Here we go.
Yeah, the weather. There's a 40% chance of rain, partly sunny, high of 58 degrees in Columbus, Ohio on Saturday.
Love it.
Penn State. I didn't write down. I got so into this, I didn't write down the rankings. Penn State's 7th.
Number 7, yes.
At number 3, Ohio State. Ohio State is favored by 4. The AJ Fun Index. AJ would tell you this is not fun. It's a 46.5 points, and I kind of think that's pretty close. I tell you what I did, Carla. I did not have a chance to see Ohio State play on Saturday. I finally was able to watch a replay today, in fact. So I have kind of an assessment of Ohio State and where they are right now. I'd be curious to hear if you have something kind of similar with the state of the Nittany Lions at this point in the season, and then we'll get into the game.
Yeah, this is. I put together a list of here's what I like entering this game,
Okay.
right, and kind of an assessment of what happened, particularly last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And then it actually factors in a little bit of your game as well here. So here's what I like entering this game. Penn State obliterated UMass last week in what could have been an easy letdown game. Yes, it was homecoming, but did you see the weather? It was gross. It was like cold and pouring, and
I was sitting out in the same weather in Ithaca.
Right? In Ithaca. I mean, it was gross. It was gross. And the stands for Beaver Stadium were like empty,
mm-hmm.
right? That was a game that the Nits could have slept through,
mm-hmm.
but they didn't.
Right.
Penn State special teams. Last week, Daequan Hardy returned 2 kicks for scores. That's something the Nits haven't done well in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
Their special teams have not been anything to write home about. And in a game coming up this weekend that could be close, special teams could play a factor here. The fact that they figured out that Hardy's a good returner, perfect timing for that. Let's see. Should I do something that I like that I saw out of your Buckeyes here? Should I just keep going?
Sure.
Okay. So here's something that I saw that makes me feel a little bit better about this matchup. Because despite your Bucks blowing out Purdue last week, which
mm-hmm.
they did, Ohio State allowed the Boilermakers to rack up more than 120 yards on the ground, including with Buck 10 to running back Devin Mockabee,
mm-hmm.
not a name I'd ever heard of before. As someone, dang it, Liberty just scored. As someone who is looking for Nick Singleton and Kaytron Allen to set the tone for this game, this makes me pleased.
Mm-hmm.
That Ohio State allowed 100 yards to an unknown back. On the other side of the ball, Penn State still boasts the number 3 rush defense in the nation, allowing just 72 yards per game. Combine that with the fact that the super deep Ohio State running back core is pretty banged up right now. Trey Henderson and Miyan Williams both sat out last week. Again, they were probably being held for, getting ready for this game, but that may help neutralize some of that ground attack. And that's going to help Penn State to put pressure on Kyle McCord and that Ohio State passing attack, which can be absolutely potent when it's firing on all cylinders. And that's going to be a challenge in this game. How can the Penn State defense, particularly that defensive line, force McCord into scramble situations and get him out of rhythm? Neutralizing Marvin Harrison and the rest of that ridiculous receiving core that puts up 300 yards per game, that's a huge task. That's going to be the one thing that I'm going to be paying attention to is how can the Penn State defense try to force Ohio State to be one-dimensional, neutralize that ground game altogether, and then have to, make McCord have to win the game, which he's capable of doing. But I still think that's Penn State's best shot here. I think this game is going to absolutely live up to expectations. Yes, I know Ohio State has won 10 of the last 11 in this series. I don't care. It's going to be a low-scoring game. It's going to be a low-scoring game. I think even with that fun index, I still say take the under. Take the under. I think it's going to be that low-scoring of a game. I'm going to take the Nits to win by a touchdown.
Okay. The game at Purdue left me feeling better about Ohio State than any other game this season, besides the Notre Dame win. First, Ohio State ran the football. Hello. And they did it without 2 of their top 3 running backs. As you mentioned, Trey Henderson and Miyan Williams were both out. The plan was to redshirt Dallin Hayden this season, but he stepped in and rushed for 76 yards. Good burst, good vision. While the team totaled 157, not great, but given the struggles that this team has had rushing the football so far this year, it's a nice improvement. We also got a really good look at the offense's depth on the edges with Emeka Egbuka out for the day. 7 different people caught passes against Purdue, including Marvin Harrison Jr. You might have heard of him, and Cade Stover, who might be the best tight end in the country who isn't named Brock Bauer. Finally, the defense continues to be stifling. You mentioned giving up yardage to the running back that no one had ever heard of outside of West Lafayette. But Ohio State did give up just 257 total yards and 7 points to keep it in its top 3 position in scoring defense. I did not get to see Penn State last weekend. I'm not sure what I've learned, what I would have learned from watching the 63-0 beatdown of UMass that I didn't know already. I mean, this is Penn State's been consistent, with the exception of the first half at Northwestern. They haven't had a letdown. They haven't had a hiccup. They have played remarkably consistent football all season long. They have 2 running backs that would start anywhere else in the league. They have a young QB who throws the ball well, although he doesn't throw the ball deep, and that may be the biggest difference between Allar and Kyle McCord. They have a better scoring defense than Ohio State has. That's saying something. And then you mentioned Daequan Hardy. Who is this guy? And suddenly I have to worry about returning punts because this game isn't stressful enough already. So, how's this going to work? I don't expect a lot of scoring. I'm not prepared to say whether you take the under or not, but that is just something that doesn't happen on these defenses. Penn State definitely has the advantage on the ground if we're talking about offense, and Ohio State's rushing defense will be tested, as you mentioned. Unlike Penn State's quarterback, Kyle McCord has no hesitation about throwing the ball deep, and he has the horses on the outside to do it. I'm not sure that Penn State has the answers for that. That's not a knock on Penn State's defense. I'm not sure that anyone has an answer for Ohio State's depth on the edges. So far this year, no one has been able to stop Cade Stover. That's going to be a big part of Ohio State's offense. Ohio State will have to run the football. Even just a little. They'll have to do it enough to keep Penn State's front 7 from teeing off on McCord. They'll accomplish that, especially if TreVeyon Henderson is ready to play this week. I suspect he will be, as you said as well. These games are always classics. I don't care that Ohio State's won 10 of the last 11 either. I always end up sweating these. Last year's game, the final score didn't necessarily reflect it, but Penn State was in charge of that game until JTT kind of blew everything up with about 10 minutes left. Don't miss the fourth quarter. That's when this game and a narrow Ohio State win at home will be decided. Boys and girls, you can hear the Carla and Crappy Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and a variety of other podcasting hosts. You can watch us on YouTube and on the show's Facebook page. And for the first time this season, as you are fully aware at this point, you can read us on our Substack. If you like us, please subscribe, rate, and review. If you don't, mind your own damn business. Be sure to come back next week. One of us is not going to be happy. And the other is going to try to be nice. Carla, do you have any final thoughts?
I do, and I might be stealing your thunder here a little bit, but I'm just throwing this out there because it's in both of our mutual interests. But Michigan travels to Michigan State on Saturday night. That game's at 7:30 Eastern on ABC, and yeah, Michigan should win this game. But you know what we always say about rivalry games?
Yes.
Throw the records out the window. Yeah, Sparty's reeling right now. They've lost 4 straight in what's been a really tumultuous season, which is why I think they have a chance here. Just like you talk all the time about how Ohio State season is one game. A lot of times, like you're really focused on winning that one game. This is the game for Michigan State. They've got nothing to lose. This is the game that they have to win. And they've won it multiple times in recent seasons as a substantial underdog.
It's true.
I may be completely wrong about this, but we've both agreed that we haven't seen anything substantial from Michigan all season.
No.
Keep your eye on this one. keep your eye on this one. This feels like an emotional, like Sparty's going to put a scare here. I don't know if they're going to be able to pull it off, but I think Sparty scares Michigan a little bit here, and this game's really interesting. So just keep your eyes on that one on Saturday night, because, you know, we're going to be done with our game. Get the triple box going to watch these 3 games in the primetime window. But yeah, just keep your eyes on that one.
I have no final thought. I have one thought. That is beat Penn State. That is my only thought.
Can my second final thought be we are?
Sure. OH. As an update, Middle ripped off a nice run and fumbled the football. So Liberty's got the ball back. Still the fourth quarter to come. So this game doesn't look like it's going to let up at any point soon. Go Middle. Go that blue team. That's fine. Carla,
let's go blue.
Best of luck to your blue team
tonight.
Yeah. On Saturday. Yeah. Cheers to you.
Here's hoping it's a good game.
Yay, Feetball.
No injuries. No, let's let it be a full mano-a-mano game. That's what I'm hoping for.
That sounds good to me. Yay, Feetball. Boys and girls, thank you very much for watching, for listening, for doing all the things you do for the show. Be sure to come back next week, regardless of what happens on Big Nude on Saturday. We're going to be back here next week doing all of this all over again. Cheers, everybody. Have a great night.
Cheers.